Hi guys. So this is part two of the video, and I hope you enjoyed part one in my original channel. Part two is obviously on my new channel. Make sure you watch the video to from the start to the end, and also if you can check out my other videos as well. It will help bring up the watch time. So without further ado, let's start the show. So Trump has arrived in China, and many people online, all the MAGA supporters, they're all celebrating Trump has arrived in China. They really are celebrating. They're saying, oh, Trump is given a hero's welcome in China. But there are some people online saying that President Xi didn't meet Trump in the airport. So I just want to let people know that President Xi has never met anybody at the airport. It's actually not part of the China's policy to meet world leaders at the airport. And there's very strict guidelines for not doing that. Even if it's Trump, President Xi will not meet him at the airport. President Xi has never met anybody at the airport, not even Putin. However, President Trump has met people at the airport. One occasion, he met Putin in an airport in Alaska because Putin wanted to meet in a kind of more neutral setting. So he arrived in Alaska, and Trump arrived in Alaska as well. But you have to understand, Alaska is still U.S. territory. It's still, United States of America. So that was Trump's home turf, and Putin was the visitor. So Trump still met Putin at the airport, and they shook hands. There was a lot of pictures taken. So the proof is there. So I think Trump may have expected President Xi to meet him at the airport because his face looked really disappointed when he met. I believe he's the vice president or that arrived, and some junior person who arrived as well. So Trump looked very disappointed that President Xi wasn't there. I think he expected him to be there, but he should have realized. President Xi doesn't need to be there, let's just say, even if it is Chinese policy to meet world leaders at the airport, let's just say that policy can be ignored. President Xi would never meet somebody like Trump in an airport. I mean, this is a guy who's been racially attacking China for years. Calling the COVID virus the Wuhan virus. He was calling it the Kung flu. He's a very extremely racist person, Trump, and he's been saying lots of racist stuff, not only to the Chinese but other races as well. He's been saying racist stuff to Palestinians as well and Iranians. This guy is a total racist, and he's other things as well. Let's just not get into that. And the current Chinese leadership have no respect for this guy at all. But they remember what he did in the first term. First term, he was an absolute nightmare, guys. He kidnapped Meng Wanzhou. He obviously attacked China because of the COVID. He banned Huawei. He put all these sanctions on China. He basically forced other countries to ban Huawei, and he was a nightmare. He basically put all these technology restrictions on China as well, and many other things, guys. Many other things. And there's no real love lost between Trump and China. Now he comes to China with a begging bowl because he's got nothing else left. America is dying, guys. America is absolutely dying. It's losing so much money. The inflation because of all the oil crisis happening around the world because of what Trump's doing. and people are paying extra money at the pumps. Sometimes pumps have doubled or even tripled. Inflation's going up sky high in United States, and the only people getting richer are those billionaires that he brought with him. He brought 10 billionaires with him in that plane. All of them are super billionaires. They're the ones that are getting richer, while everybody else in America are getting poorer. So, oh yeah, by the way, the Nvidia leader, I think he arrived last minute at the airport. I think people thought he wasn't invited, and then Trump must have saw the tweet or something. He must have saw the newspaper articles why Jensen was not invited. Then he called him last minute and asked him to come on the plane, and he did. But anyway, guys, and these billionaires, have destroyed countries. These are evil, evil people, like the leader of BlackRock, for example, Elon Musk, for example. I mean, Elon Musk has destroyed so many countries, guys. He has, with his SpaceX, he has pushed color revolutions all across the world. He's used it in Bangladesh. He's used it in Iran, by the way, with those protests. He's using it in Ukraine to kill Russians. Literally, he's used it in so many places around the world, and it's just going to get worse. That's his tool for color revolutions. And then you have the BlackRock guy coming in. BlackRock guys, he's no different from Soros. These guys come into countries, they buy up all the assets, and they dump them, and they crash the currency and crush the country and steal all the wealth. BlackRock itself has got, I think, 24, 25 trillion dollars in wealth around the world. Literally has destroyed countries. BlackRock has, and the other companies as well. They're not any better. You got Facebook, who also has promoted terrorism around the world, especially to China, and you have some pharmaceutical companies who have probably pushed COVID around the world as well. These are all evil companies, guys, all of them. And they're all evil people as well. None of them said anything about what's been happening in Gaza, for example. None of them stood up for it. What's the point of having all this money and power when you can't do something with the wealth that God gave you? Some people have, you know, power and money, but if you don't do any good with it, what's the point of, being rich? If you can't do any good, help humanity. Greedy bastards. I'm telling you, greedy bastards. What's the point of being a billionaire? If you're a billionaire and you do like lots of work for charity and stuff, you help people in need, you help humanity, you stand up for human rights, like what's happening in Gaza and Lebanon, even Iran. They needed to stand up, but no, nobody, not one of them stood up because they don't care, guys. For them, war is money for them. War, suffering, killing. End of the day, they're the ones that make money. I mean, look at Starlink, guys. It's made Elon so much money. Starlink has, because he's been pushing color revolution, and then he's been using Starlink in Ukraine, and Ukraine's been using Starlink, and people around the world are paying for it. People paying Elon Musk. He uses Starlink in Ukraine. But when Gaza asks for Starlink, when Lebanon asks for Starlink, no, he doesn't want to give it because he's Israeli owned like the rest of them, guys. So yeah, I mean, I'm not very happy, to be honest, guys, that Trump has arrived in China. I'm not very happy. I mean, I know China very well. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the leadership will, you know, give him a photo op and everything. They'll give him grand gesture like they have. By the way, all these MAGA accounts are saying Trump has been given a ground gesture, he's been given a red carpet. Every single leader that comes to China gets the same treatment. It's no different, guys. Look at, in fact, I've seen lesser leaders from lesser countries getting better treatment than Trump. I've seen leaders like, I think, I've seen Turkmenistan or Malaysia, all these other leaders that came recently. They've had an even better reception than Trump, much bigger one. So Trump is actually getting some of the least um, reception compared to other leaders that's been coming to China. Because China doesn't really look at a country based on its power, its money. China treats everybody equally. But the countries China will treat better are the countries who have been friendly to China or are real allies. China respects consistency and stability over anything. And they prefer countries who have been very, very stable and they have consistently shown good behavior towards China. Those countries China will always put above all else because China looks at actions, not words. You've heard the saying, action means louder than words, right? Because you have to always look at someone's actions, not their words. Trump is somebody who talks a big game, but his actions do not match his words because he always lies. He'll lie about this, he'll lie about that, he'll promise you this, he'll promise you that. He'll wake up tomorrow morning and he'll forget what he promised and he'll change his mind in an instant. China cannot deal with people like that. In fact, China will not deal with him at all. Because I tell you this, guys. I think China knows he's not to be trusted. They know they cannot trust him. He's got a blockage or a blockade, sorry, blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, blocking Chinese ships from going into China. So everything he's doing, he's trying to, you know, basically kick China. He's trying to basically, you know, stop energy from going into China. But what he doesn't know is China has diversified his energy, over the past few years, maybe more than a few years, since the Obama years. So and Trump is obviously not high enough IQ to realize that because oil has been flowing into China. China has got huge reserves. And reserves are not going down. Oil is still flowing into China. It's going via train from Iran. It's going via land from Russia. It's also going through pipeline through Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and China also has its own oil fields as well, and they're also getting oil from other countries as well. I mean, there are tankers are still coming through into China, and Trump doesn't really understand that. He doesn't understand that China has diversified its energy. Trump thinks that you can squeeze all these countries are providing oil to China and China will collapse. That's what he thinks. This is why he attacked Venezuela. This is why he's attacking Cuba. Have you noticed all of these countries are all friendly towards China? Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, all of these countries are allies with China. So Trump is attacking all of them at once. China knows this, and Trump has brought his whole entourage with him, his whole billionaire class. And these billionaires together, we're talking about, their net worth is more than $1 trillion. And their companies together we're talking about 50 trillion here, guys. I mean, BlackRock alone is 25 trillion. So look at the article here. Donald Trump demands Xi open up China to business. He demands China open up. So what? So why? Because he wants to steal all the wealth from China. That's what he wants to do. He wants, companies like BlackRock go in, steal all the assets and treasure from China, and collapse the country. And that's how they've been surviving, guys. All these years, they've been going country to country, collapsing the currency and stealing their wealth. That's how they made all this money. Even people like George Soros, who has been, going into countries and crashing countries' stock markets and currencies. He's done it to UK. He's done it to Russia. He's done it to Asia as well. There was an Asian stock market crash all because of Soros, and he stole all that money, trillions and trillions worth of money, guys. And this is why BlackRock is so rich. This is why I'm so angry that China has allowed these business guys to kind of step foot into China. I'm also angry that fact that Rubio has been banned from entering China, and he's been allowed to come into China. I know he's a Secretary of State, guys. I know he's a Secretary of State, but I think China should not have allowed him in because it just shows that if China bans someone for being anti-Chinese, say somebody's, I mean, Marco Rubio is a very anti-Chinese hawk. He's been talking so many lies and nonsense throughout the years, and that's why he was banned from China. He was talking about, the Uyghurs are having genocide. He was talking about forced labor in Xinjiang. He was talking about so many lies, and this is why he got banned. I think China should not have allowed people like that to come into China. Because if he's banned, then he should stay banned. Not, he's obviously in China not because he loves China. He's in China because he wants handouts. He wants money. So I think China probably made a mistake. They should have kept him banned. Should have kept him in United States. Yeah, I don't agree him being there because China allowing him to come to China, it just sets a standard, sets a precedence that if China bans you or sanctions you, it doesn't really mean anything. They can always unban you later on, or you can always come in later if you're part of the American, basically administration. So everybody that China has banned in the United States for being anti-Chinese, why if they all join the administration next year, in the next election, in the next administration, and they all start coming into China asking for money and handouts? It just sets a precedence, guys. You shouldn't, once a person is banned, should always stay banned. Because at the end of the day, they're banned for a reason. I would say even President Trump should be banned because this guy's a felon as well. He's a felon, he's a P. I'm not going to say the full word, but you know what I mean. He's friends with Epstein. This this administration is they're just a bunch of gangsters, guys, and they're a bunch of, you know what I mean. So so what I really hope for, I really hope that these gangsters don't get any deal from China. I hope they get really embarrassed in China. They don't come out with any sorts of deal. Even Boeing gets no deals. Nobody gets any deal. Because at the end of the day, guys, listen, they're asking for Chinese investments in. in in uh, in China, basically. I mean, in America. However, they can pull out any moment. I mean, look at this story. This is in Britain. You know, UK is going to nationalize British steel after they're basically going to kick out the Chinese owners. So the British government gave the Chinese owners 100 million offer, but the Chinese owners put 1 billion into the project. 1 billion they put into British steel. You know, all the money that they've put in. And the British government gave 1 million offer, and he rejected it. And despite rejection, the British is going to nationalize British steel, despite 1 billion of Chinese money going into British steel. So I will talk about this a bit later on, guys. But you know where I'm getting at. You know, companies like Huawei invested a lot in America and UK, and they got kicked out. If BYD opens factories in America, I guarantee you that once these factories open, America will just nationalize it. Will kick BYD out, and they will just everything in the on the factories. America will just take it, and they will just use it, and they will learn how BYD's factories work, and they will steal all the technology. That's what's going to happen, guys. You cannot trust the West, Americans, the British, you know, and the Chinese keep falling for it. You know, the Chinese, you know, they're very good hard workers, right? They're very, very good when it comes to hard work, and they're very disciplined, you know, and they stick to their word, you know. But they're very, very bad at business, you know, very bad at business. They're very naive at business. They keep being cheated over and over and over again. It's happened all the time, guys. I see it all the time. They keep investing in these countries, in these, you know, they fall for these fake white man promises from Trump and from Starmer. Even those Hungary plants are going to be in big trouble now that Orban is gone. And they keep getting burnt. China keeps getting burnt. They keep investing in the West, and the West just keeps nationalizing them. It's happened in Ukraine because Chinese companies had invested in a company called you know, aerodynamics company, or a weapons company, and they make you know, plane engines basically. And Zelensky, this was before the war, by the way. And Zelensky basically nationalized it, despite China putting in hundreds of billions into that project. Not hundreds of billions, hundreds of millions. And then Ukraine came and, you know, basically nationalized it, and China lost all that money. They haven't got it back. And the same with all these companies that were invested in America. Then when Trump came in his first term, he cancelled all the projects, nationalized everything, kicked all the Chinese out. Chinese are being kicked out of farm usage. So all the farms that China owns in America, America is just taking them, just, you know, literally taking them without paying it any money. All the Chinese in America, in the West, they've been arrested for spies as well for no reason. Recently, there's two Hong Kong guys got arrested. You know, basically they think they're spies. Or any Chinese scientists, they get arrested, interviewed by the FBI. This is why China, you know, look at China, guys. China doesn't need America anymore. China doesn't need the West anymore. There is no need for China to do any sorts of deals with the West. You know, China is fine by itself. They can trade with the rest of the world. The rest of the world is 80 or 90% of the population. The world population is how much? 8 billion. And what's the population in America? It's 300 million or something. And out of the 300 million in America, you know, who are the middle class? and who are rich. There's not a big number, guys. The middle class is shrinking every day in America. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. So the people with actual money is probably less than 10,000, I would say, in America. And the middle class is shrinking in America and the West as well. Middle class is shrinking all over the West. So China needs to just, focus on developing markets, not the markets that are going down. So I really hope they don't do any sort of deals with these gangsters, guys. And I really hope that they don't come to any deal when it comes to Iran, for example. I think China should stick to its guns with Iran, support Iran, because what Iran is doing is also helping China in the long term. Because if Iran falls, the Middle East will be taken over by United States and Israel. And guess who they're going to come after next? They're going to, basically vassalize all the Middle Eastern states. You're going to see Greater Israel. They're going to take over all the oil fields, and that oil fields they're going to be controlling, and and they'll just stop the flow to China any moment. So Iran is fighting, for the global south in that part of the world. Russia is fighting for the global south in the northern hemisphere, and China can basically look after Asia and Central Asia. That's a big enough world for these three powers. So I really hope that China kind of doesn't kind of, agree to anything that Trump demands. Trump is desperate, guys. He's very, very desperate. He tried to put 145% tariff on China just a few months ago, and it failed, completely failed. Now he's come to China asking with a begging bowl to give money. Why should China give money to somebody like that who can any given moment place sanctions on China? I mean, if China didn't have the rare earths card, right? If China did not have rare earths, then Trump would have sanctioned the hell out of China. He would have put those 145% tariffs on China, and he would have not, he would have just left it. He would have not backed down. The only reason he had to back down is because China revealed its rare earths card. Otherwise, he would have kept that, like he did all these sanctions in his first term. At that time, China wasn't as powerful as today. It didn't have a semiconductor industry, and and Huawei was very, very dependent on Western products and software at the time. So they got really hurt at the time when those sanctions hit Chinese companies, especially Huawei. But now China has become very much self-sufficient. Huawei's become self-sufficient, and he needs to stay like that. So yeah, that's all for today, guys. And so take care for now, guys, and I'll see you soon.